The studio lights hit hard, too bright, too clinical, casting long shadows over polished desks and rigid smiles. The chyron scrolls beneath them like an unseen drumbeat. Live. National Policy Panel. Truth or partisan games? Kash Patel leans in, that familiar smirk curling just before he speaks. "Well, with all due respect, Congresswoman," he says, voice syrupy smooth and soaked in condescension, "maybe if you spent more time understanding national security and less time chasing hashtags, you'd actually contribute something to this country." A flicker, barely perceptible. Jasmine Crockett doesn't flinch, doesn't blink, just tilts her head slightly, like someone weighing whether to respond or to let the silence do it for her. The panel freezes. The moderator glances sideways, unsure whether to intervene or sit back and witness history. One guest stares at the floor. Another bites back a grin, sensing something seismic about to erupt. Jasmine finally speaks. "Well," she begins, her tone steady, almost amused, "that's rich, coming from a man who couldn't secure a lunch order without turning it into a classified briefing." A ripple of nervous laughter breaks across the table. But Jasmine isn't done. "You want to talk contribution? I serve the people of Texas. I represent working families, immigrants, veterans, teachers, folks who actually build this country. You served a man who tried to burn it down." The smirk fades. She continues, voice rising just enough to command the room. "You were handed power, and you used it to lie, to distract, to protect corruption. And now you're here, pretending to educate me?" A pause. Dead air. Not even the moderator breathes. "Sit in that." Silence. For a split second, the air itself feels heavier. Then someone off-camera lets out a soft, stunned, "Damn." Jasmine leans back, unbothered. The power dynamic has shifted, visibly. On Twitter, the clip hasn't landed yet. But in this room, it already has. Kash fumbles for a rebuttal. It doesn't come. Because what do you say when the mirror finally talks back? But what no one knew was that Jasmine was just getting started. The exchange between Jasmine Crockett and Kash Patel lit up like a spark in dry brush. But to see it as just a sharp comeback was to miss the deeper fire smoldering beneath. Because this wasn't just cable news theater. This wasn't another partisan joust for internet points. It was the collision of two Americas. One clinging to power through performance, the other rising with purpose. Jasmine Crockett didn't walk into that studio looking for a viral moment. She walked in carrying decades of inherited struggle and first-hand accountability. A public defender turned Congresswoman. A voice that doesn't just speak for herself, but for the unheard, for the underestimated, for the communities that are too often brought up in talking points, but never brought to the table. Across from her sat Kash Patel, a man with a resume stitched together by loyalty, not legacy. Former Trump aide, architect of backroom maneuvers. A figure who, time and time again, has been in the room not because of what he knows, but because of who he serves. A man entangled in more legal shadows than civic light. And still, he felt entitled to lecture her. That's what made this moment seismic. Because when Patel dismissed Crockett as unserious, as unqualified, as merely performative, he wasn't just speaking to her. He was speaking through her, to every black woman who's ever had to over-explain, to every first-generation American who's been told their passion is unprofessional, to every truth-teller who's been painted as too angry just for not staying silent. What Patel represented wasn't just a talking head, it was a playbook, one built on erasure, deflection, dominance. And Crockett's response wasn't just personal, it was generational. In those few seconds of viral oxygen, Jasmine became something more than a politician. She became a mirror, reflecting what America is still fighting to recognize. And whether viewers knew it or not, they were watching a shift, a power recalibration, a reminder that the old scripts no longer apply when the new voices stop asking for permission. Because the real battle wasn't just between a congresswoman and a former aide, it was between clarity and chaos, between service and self-preservation, between the politics of truth and the politics of fear. And Jasmine didn't flinch, she didn't reach for insults, she reached for impact. Because she understood the stakes. She understood that every time a woman like her is told to be quiet, another child watching at home learns to shrink. But not this time. This time, the silence didn't swallow her. It elevated her. And the moment he underestimated her, that's when it all began to unravel. To understand what happened in that studio, you have to understand the man who thought he owned the room. Kash Patel isn't new to the game. He's not a fringe player or an accidental guest. He's been in the